What's up everybody, thanks for tuning in. Today's video I'm going to be showing you how I built this crosscut sled for my table saw. A crosscut sled is a tool many woodworkers use to make safe and precise cuts across the grain of a board, hence the name crosscut. It utilizes the table saw's miter gauge slots to guide the sled across the blade accurately. If you're interested in a step-by-step tutorial on how I made this one, stick around. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for future notifications. To start off, you need a 2x4 foot sheet of 3/4 inch MDF. I'm going to be using some different plywood and hardwood pieces, but you can make those exact same pieces with the cutoff of this MDF. Here I'm using my Festool track saw to make a cut at 20 inches. You don't necessarily need a track saw to do this. You can just use your table saw if you'd like. Next I cut some 3/4 inch plywood into 4-inch strips. These will be used for the bridge and the fence. I head over to the miter station to cut them to length at 20 inches. Next, I go ahead and round off the top corners with the belt sander. Next, I lay out some lines for the center and the T-tracks. I go ahead and switch over to a dado blade to make the cut for the T-tracks. If you don't own a dado blade, you can still make this cut by using an 1/8 inch blade and bumping your fence over an 1/8 inch with each pass until your dado is wide enough. Next, I use a small piece of T-track to adjust my blade height. I do a few test cuts and make any minor adjustments until the T-track sits flush with the workpiece. Once I get the blade height set, I go ahead and cut all of the dados so I don't have to keep changing blades back and forth. I cut the T-tracks out on the bandsaw, but if you don't have one, you can just always use your miter saw with a carbide tip blade. Next, I set the T-tracks in place, and then I use a number 6 self-centering drill bit to make the pilot holes. I'm using number 6 flathead screws to fasten the T-tracks to the sled. It's important to use short fasteners and make sure that they don't go through the bottom of your sled. I go ahead and mark out some lines to make slots for the T-bolts to slide through the bridge. Once I get my lines laid out, I drill holes at the top of the slot and finish making the cut with my jigsaw. Next, I attach the bridge to the sled using clamps and number 8 1.5 inch fasteners. head over to the planer and plane down a board until it's the same thickness as the miter gauge slots on my table saw. Next, I cut 2 runners that will sit on the bottom of the sled. You want the runners to move freely in the miter gauge slots, but you also don't want them to have too much slop. I go ahead and cut the runners to their final length dimensions on my miter saw using a fine finish blade. I head over to the drill press and drill holes in the bottom of the runners using a number 8 bit with a countersink. Next, I place a few washers in the miter gauge slots to keep the runners above the surface of the table saw. I spread some wood glue on the bottom of the runners and then add a few drops of CA glue. Next, I place the runners in the T-slots and the sled on top of the runners using my fence as a guide. I'm using Titebond's Instant Bond Activator Spray to instantly bond the runners to the bottom of the sled. This is a handy trick to use for when you don't have time to let the glue dry or you can't get a clamp on something. Now that the runners are glued in place, I go ahead and put 5 3/4 inch fasteners in each one. Before I put the fence on, I need to make a cut through the middle of the sled. To do this, I just turn the saw on with the blade lowered and slowly raise the blade up through the bottom of the sled. I'm not cutting through the entire bottom of the sled here. I'm leaving some material on either end. This allows me to square my fence up. Next, I need to put the backing board on. This is just something that I can get square and that I can attach my fence to. I place one fastener on the left side and then check for squareness. Once I get it square, I go ahead and put a fastener in the right side. With the backing board on, I can go ahead and cut closer towards the edge. Just make sure to not cut through the backing board. I check for squareness one last time before I install the remaining fasteners. Now that I have the backing board in place, I can attach the fence to it. I just clamp it in place and I'm using 1.5" number 8 screws to fasten it. I'm using this flex drill bit extension to get in the hard to reach places. Next, I need to put the blade guard on the back of the fence. This is a safety feature to keep my hands and fingers away from the cut zone. ahead and put one on the bridge side too, just to give it some extra support. Now I need to install the T-track on the fence. These will be used to attach stops to make cuts and different jigs I'll make in the future. To check to see if it cuts square, I go ahead and do what's called the 5-cut method. The idea is to make 5 cuts on a board, turning the board with each cut and then checking for squareness. Wow, incredible. Adding slots for the T-bolts was a nice feature because now I can remove them if I need to. Here is one last look at this thing, and before I go, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for future notifications. Thanks, everybody.